What's up, guys? Coach PJ here. I recently posted an article on training in the sand, some of the benefits and some of the cons of training in the sand. For those of you who don't like to read, I'm going to start posting some video series of my articles as well. So I'm out on the beach here in Southern California in Newport Beach, and obviously there's a lot of benefits to training in the sand, but depending on your goal, it could actually be detrimental to your performance. So I'm going to go through 3 pros and 3 cons for training in the sand. To start off, training in the sand can be great because it's a change in environment. So getting out of the gym, breaking the monotony of being in the gym day in and day out, particularly for athletes who are in there training all the time, multiple practices. Getting outside, out in the sun, enjoying the breeze can be great just for a mental reset. So it's excellent for breaking up that monotony during a recovery week or just a recovery workout. Number 2, training in the sand makes everything harder. So if your goal is just to burn some calories, get a good sweat going, then training in the sand makes that everything a lot more difficult. So it increases the metabolic demand. Jogging in the sand, jumping in the sand, running, crawling, whatever it is, the demand's going to go way up, so the calories you burn is going to go up. And then number 3, the sand is a soft surface, so it reduces the impact on your joints. So if you're a runner, somebody who pounds the pavement every day, or you have a lot of joint inflammation, because the sand is softer, it'll reduce that impact on your joints. However, if you're going to be running in the sand, particularly the hard sand, one of the mistakes people make a lot is because the sand is a little bit softer, they run barefoot on it right away, and that still has a decent impact on your joints if you haven't prepared yourself. So make sure if you're going to be running in the hard sand, you lace up some sneakers or you start to increase the volume slowly. So we've talked about some of the benefits of training in the sand. Now we're going to go into how training in the sand can sometimes be counterproductive. So the number one thing, and we see this a lot, there's tons of speed trainers now who come out to the sand and they do their cone drills or their speed drills or their agility ladders, and they do all that stuff in the sand because they think it makes it harder, therefore it's going to be better. However, speed training in the sand will make you slower. So if your goal is speed or power, you're actually doing something that's going to be detrimental to your performance. The reason for that is elite level speed training, we're working on how much force you can apply into the ground. Newton's third law of motion is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when I apply a ton of force into the ground, that ground reaction force that gets applied back into my body is what accelerates my body forward. The ground reaction forces of the sand are significantly different than the ground reaction forces of the football turf or the basketball court or even running on the concrete. So if you're speed training in the sand, those ground reaction forces are going to be different. They're going to be a lot lesser. Therefore, the muscle contractions will be slower, and that's going to teach your body to produce force slower. So one of the biggest things we work on when training for elite level speed is the stretch shortening cycle and rapid utilization of that stretch shortening cycle, how fast you can contract those muscles and produce force, and utilization of those ground reaction forces, so producing force into the ground that's going to drive me forward. So if you see when I drive my foot into the ground here, all that sand gives out. Therefore, there's a lot less force that's driven back up into my body. If I did that on concrete, there would be a much bigger rebound that would drive me forward. So speed training in the sand is actually going to slow those contractions down, and it's going to teach your body to move slower and produce force slower, and that's going to be counterproductive to what you need to do to play your sport. The second reason that speed training in the sand can be counterproductive and will be detrimental to your performance is the sand changes your mechanics. We just talked about the ground reaction forces. Agility is all about absorbing and then reapplying force in a different direction. That's how we change directions. So we use specific body mechanics in order to apply and absorb the right amounts of force in the right directions. But because the ground reaction forces are different, I can't absorb forces the same way, and it's going to change my mechanics. So if I got in position to make a cut here, normally I would get in this 45-degree angle and I would absorb the force and redirect. However, because of the way my foot plants, the sand's going to give out. Therefore, I can't apply the force, so I'm going to have to be doing it at a different angle, more of an upright posture, in order to make those cuts. Same thing if I was to get it working on my starts. I get down in my speed stance, And from here, I want to drive forward and apply a ton of force off both legs, but a lot of force on this front leg in order to drive me forward. But when I go apply that force into the ground, again, the sand's going to give out. Therefore, if I stay at the good angle for me to accelerate, I'm going to fall on my face. So I'm going to have to pop up and run with more upright mechanics, which is then, again, not going to translate to the way I want to run and cut on the football field or the basketball court. And then the third reason that training in the sand can be detrimental is there's a significantly higher risk of injury. If I'm running or jumping or doing anything super fast on the sand, because the sand gives out, it's an unpredictable and uneven surface, the chance of getting injured is a lot higher. So if you have athletes that you're working with and we have to constantly be weighing the cost-benefit, what we just talked about, the benefit is very minimal and the cost could be significantly higher if you're trying to do your speed training in the sand. So if I come out here and I have an athlete trying to cut, the ground reaction forces aren't the same, the angles aren't the same, and then they blow their knee out or blow their ankle out because the ground gave out when they made a cut, I'm not doing my job as a coach. So you can have some benefits for the uneven surface like we talked about earlier, but if you're coming off of an injury or you just don't want to risk an injury, then doing things at rapid speeds, fast in the sand, can kind of be a pretty bad idea. And we just talked about how it's not beneficial anyway. So ultimately, it just depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to come out, get outside the gym, break a sweat, do some jumps, run around, get sweaty and tired, and burn a bunch of calories, then adding the sand to your workout can make it significantly more challenging and just more fun. But if your goal is speed training or agility, and you come out here and you're constantly doing all of your speed and agility work in the sand, you're actually just going to be training poor mechanics. They're going to translate poor mechanics onto the field, and you're going to be teaching your muscles to apply force slower, which is going to slow you down when it comes to playing. So you've got to start with the goal in mind and choose if training in the sand is really the right idea for your training goal.